Go where your best prayers take you, unclench the fists of your spirit and take it easy. Breathe deeply of the glad air and live one day at a time. Know that you are precious and learn to trust. Amen. Well, welcome everyone this morning as we wind down our summer together. There's a lot going on, isn't there? Today we are blessed to have with us Olivier Muher, who is part of the Green Magnet Academy, and he's our person on point, and he will be introduced later. I hope many of you will introduce yourselves. He's here to help us as we reorganize as we begin to serve this year with them again. David Stoltz is with us, and I haven't met you, David, but welcome. He is our new music intern. This is a really neat thing that you have all made happen through the music program. That we have an organ major, correct? And he's also going to be studying with our musicians, learning how to do church music. So it's been great fun to have you with us, and I hope we all make you very welcome. I hope you looked outside. The new prayer garden is going full speed. It's going to be fabulous. Earthadelic is cranking along. And thank Mary Hugh and a lot of people doing that. We had our last Lakeshore service today, so that's where everybody else is. They were at Lakeshore. We had a big crowd again this morning. They'll soon be back next week. We'll be all back in our 2 services for the fall. So lots of great things happening. And yesterday was a remarkable day. Thankfully, people prayed this morning at Lakeshore that it was a peaceful day in Knoxville. Many of you turned out to the kindness rally, which was very dear and I thought very appropriate. As a reminder of our response to the hidden things in people's hearts, but I may say about later. So let me ask you a question. With all the things going on in the natural world, it's appropriate we stop this morning. Have you seen the news? Houston is desperate. It is very, very serious. I woke up early, about 5 o'clock, and the first thing it is, turned on the news, and there are hundreds of people being evacuated in serious trouble. Homes flooded, streets flooded, and the water just keeps coming. So let's really think of them today. It's been that week, hasn't it, where we witness the power of God in the natural world. It's inescapable. And in a happier place, in a place that's a little more joyful. Where were you on Monday? Come on, where were you on Monday? How many of you saw the eclipse? Raise your hands. I should ask who didn't see the eclipse and say, come on, penalty time with Tom Rasnick. No. But if you missed it, it was quite something, wasn't it? What did you think? Seriously. Was it amazing? Was it just incredible? I have to tell you, I thought it was just going to be kind of one of those walkover things. Okay, it comes and goes. It's profound, isn't it? It's touching. All the kids at ESK did a great thing, did a science fair at ESK, and the kids just had a fabulous afternoon. I was talking to the headmaster a few minutes ago, and he said it's just amazing. The energy, the response. Everywhere I've talked to you all where you were, whether you're at the lakeside, in your yard, at a friend's, down at the Heinsohns with a lot of people from St. John's, just an incredible experience. I was really blessed. The staff is kind and lets me off for a couple of weeks to go do my kind of spiritual work, which is done usually at a high altitude in the mountains in the west. And I was in the Wind River Range mountains, and I was at 11,200 feet for the eclipse. And my friend, who's smarter than I, said, have you ever seen one? And I said, it'll be okay. He said, no, we need to climb up high. So we climbed up high. He said, we're going to watch something special. And we were able to watch to the west because the sun, the shadow comes from the west, to look down on Bomber Lake, which is 3,000 feet below us, and to see it turn night in Bomber Lake before it got dark at our 11,200 feet. Very powerful. And I know if you saw it, it was just so touching. I can't even describe why it was so touching. I bet you can't either. What was that about? I don't know. It's something just so powerful and awe-inspiring. So much bigger and majestic than us and usually our kind of day-to-day world. It's interesting the science behind it, isn't it? Very powerful in that too. The moon's shadow is racing 3,000 miles an hour across the United States. Powerful thought. And it's interesting that if the moon were not its exact size, we would not have the eclipse that we have. Did you know that? It would be very different. And I was thinking too that while eclipses actually aren't that rare, did you know they happen every year and a half or so? But how many have you seen? The truth is, most of us might see one, might see two in a lifetime. At intersecting paths of moons and stars, suns, and planets. You know the science word for it? It's interesting. They call it an occultation. An occulation, where you have a hiddenness. That's the word. It means hidden. And I thought, how appropriate. What an appropriate thought. Because, most of us experience God in a hidden way, like that eclipse. God behind the universe of the eclipse. Most of us see God is hidden a bit, not quite in view. We believe in God, or you wouldn't be here. Let's be honest. You'd be somewhere else doing something else. If you're not searching, seeking God, you're not here. You're out doing something else on a Sunday morning. But we are looking and searching for Him. And we believe in Him and know that He is there, but most of the time He's just not quite in view. Like that eclipse. He's not impossible to see, but we have to look. And sometimes the looking is not easy, is it? Again, the staff is kind to let me go hike for a couple of weeks. And, it's interesting that even though you're out having fun, life is tedious, isn't it? I was carrying about a 45-pound pack, and I promise you, after 7 or 8 days, you kind of get lost in the travail of heavy lifting. And I was kind of walking along, and we were in this beautiful valley, and it looked like a movie set for cowboys and Indians or something. We're walking along below Big Sandy Mountain. And I noticed something caught my eye, but it didn't register. Just kept on clipping along. And I literally walked 100 to 200 yards, and all of a sudden I said to my hiking friend Jim, I said, "Jim, wait." He said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Nothing's wrong. Come back with me. Turn around, come back." And we went back up the path, and that's the picture I gave you on the flip side of your service, of your song sheet this morning. I walked back, and there was this beautiful natural geranium growing up out of a rock. And I had walked right past it. And then it reminded me why I was doing what I was doing. I was there to take that in, not miss it. I was there to slow down and to quit worrying about the weight on my back. Ever feel that way, that you're carrying about 45 pounds walking around? The truth of it is you do, because I know your lives. I talk to you all the time. Most of us do. We feel like we're carrying weight and we're just focused on where we're to get. We don't see anything below us, anything around us. We're just moving. And we miss most of what's going on around us. See, life is really that way. Hard to slow down. But you see, that's why we are here this morning. That's what makes us different. Because we are the people who are trying to say that we do see God at work. Maybe it is not easy, but if we look, we see God at work, and we know that it makes a difference in our lives and a difference in the lives around us. See, we are the people who witness to God. We say that God is on the job all the time. We say that God is in our lives all the time. We say that God is bringing healing and wholeness into life, lifting us up, lifting others up. He is sustaining us through all trials and along every path that we walk. But again, sometimes His presence is a bit hidden, like the experience this week of the eclipse. But He's there, subtly, gently, reminding us. It's the best story I've ever heard. And I almost missed it. And my wife said, "Why are you getting up? Stay. Look at this." Michaela was a young girl born in Sierra Leone. Do you know where that is? Between Guyana and Liberia. Southwest corner of Africa. Most of us know the Sierra Leone because it's a war-torn country, divided by civil strife, warfare, terrible, terrible poverty, disease, illness. Michaela was born there. By the time she was 8, her parents had both been killed in the battles. She was taken into a refugee camp. The people tried to love her, but can you imagine being all alone in the world at 8? Totally untethered from anything familiar. I just can't even imagine. She was cared for, given food, but over the months, she continued to kind of recede back into herself and fade away. And poor Michaela, on top of it, had a skin condition, very treatable in the West, not treatable in Africa, that left some marks on her skin, and in their superstitious world, they said she was the devil's child. And so she was a bit shunned, even though she was a beautiful child. But she would sit by herself, and the more she sat, the more she pushed into herself, where she would go out to the edge of the refugee camp and sit against the barbed wire every day. Cannot imagine what it takes to find hope in that situation. Can you? And she had lost hope. Even an 8-year-old knows the difference in hope and hopelessness. And she had decided she did not know what death was, but death would be welcome. And had pretty much given up. Maybe not eat, just fade away physically. And then this happened. The wind was blowing as it always blows in Sierra Leone. The crops are gone, the hillsides are bare. The dust is in the air, it fills your nose constantly. And the wind was whipping against that poor brown child as she leaned against the fence. And the strangest thing happened. The magazine cover of a European glossy magazine slammed against the fence right up against her face. Out of nowhere. And as she leaned back, she saw a figure. A ballerina dancing. And so she teased the magazine cover through the fence. And she sat and pondered what it was that she saw but could not comprehend. She had no idea what a ballerina was. She could kind of tell that the person was dancing. She got that. But what struck her was that the woman was ecstatic. Had this huge smile on her face, and she was beautiful. And she could tell through the picture that this woman had joy in her life and was happy. And Michaela said right there, I want to be happy. And it gave her hope. She did not know, this is true, she did not know that 5,000 miles away in Seattle, in Minneapolis, I think they're in Minneapolis, Elaine and her husband Bill DePrince were sitting at a table pondering the information they'd been given from a relief agency about adopting children from West Africa. And in some short weeks, she would actually meet Michaela, never knowing that she would meet a child of the Sierra Leone who pointed at this picture and in her language said, whatever she is doing, I'm going to do. And Elaine said, she is a ballerina. Maybe the first word she learned. And she said, then I'm going to be a ballerina. 20 years or so have passed. Michaela is the highest jumper in the Dutch National Ballet. She's made a video with Beyonce about her experience, about the hardness of life. Very powerful. Elaine was asked, what would you tell her birth parents if you could? And she said this, I would tell them, and I hope they can see, that Michaela has risen from the horror, and she is still rising. When I heard that report, I could hear Steve singing that refrain that we sing. What is it? Something about from the rising of the east to the setting in the west. Praise be the name of the Lord. You see, we are the people who claim that that was God. I have no idea how that works. No more than I can barely explain an eclipse. A magazine cover saves a child, saves a family, and do you know what? That story saves you and me. Because that is the picture of grace. That is the picture of what salvation, healing, wholeness is really all about. Right there. And all of us have it this close. It is the flower that we miss. It is the smile on your child's face that we might miss. It is the kindness that we enact toward one another that we might miss. It is the prayers and the reaching out of someone when you're alone that you might miss. It's not impossible. Pay attention. And you won't miss it, thankfully. Amen.